Hi guys, welcome back. I hope you're doing well and that you're having a good week. Studying's coming along well, not too much stress or anxiety. As for me, I have a meeting in exactly 1 hour, which means I have to head out within the next 30 minutes. But I got ready a lot faster than usual, so I thought I'll make a video. Let's see if I can actually make one in the next 20 minutes, but that's the goal. And I know a lot of you guys are anxious about me just finishing out the pediatric milestones, and I am too, because I've never been a pediatric person. I don't hang out with little people. I don't even hang out with my little nephews and niece that much. I hope they never watch this video. I like them a lot, but I've just never been a pediatric person. So I'm anxious to get this finished too. And we will, and it won't be hard. We'll get through it one milestone at a time. But what this does allow us to do is to use our creative mental faculties, right? And I had the opportunity to come up with all these ridiculous associations because, frankly, I don't have kids, and it's hard for me to imagine what kids look like when they're 3 months or 7 months. So, these associations may not be agreeable with you, but even if they're not, I encourage you to come up with some on your own, because the more personal they are to you in your life, the better and easier it'll be for you to remember and learn and retain them. Okay, so let's get started, and we're going to start with as early as when the baby is born to 3 months. Okay, so imagine a newborn infant and how they might get their nutritional intake. I would imagine a pretty small, tiny baby with very little movement, and when it comes to like oral motor function, you would expect it to be not that sophisticated, right? Because what are they doing at this time? They're pretty much just laying there, either getting breast milk or formula from a bottle. So the only pattern that you'll really see at this time is sucking or suckling pattern. There's no biting and none of the sophisticated movement that you'll see later on, but that's okay, because at month 1, all that they're really having is liquid, and it's not even until month 3 that they can even take pureed. So the one thing to remember from up until 3 months is that there is a sucking pattern and that they're mainly taking liquid and pureed. Okay, let's move on to what happens at 4 months, and I call this the training period. This is when they get ready and they get geared up for what's to come ahead, which is to be able to eat beyond pureed and liquid. So by 4 months, the infant is like, okay, I'm tired of breast milk, I'm tired of formula, I need to get to work so that I can start to eat real food. And so what begins to happen is, whether you put toys or food in their mouth, they begin to demonstrate primitive phasic bite and release. Okay, and so as early as 4 months to like 5 months, 4 to 5 months, they will demonstrate this phasic bite and release. And when that becomes repetitive and rhythmic, we call that munching. Munching is basically up and down vertical jaw movement. So that is 4 months is the training period, and it's them getting their jaws ready to munch on real food and transition from pureed and liquid. And that happens at 5 months. At 5 months, I like to say high five to the baby, because their work at 4 months, that phasic biting, munching, pays off, and they are able to take a cereal or pureed from a spoon. And so this is kind of a big deal, because this is the first time they're being introduced to something other than liquid and pureed breast milk and formula, right? So we give them a high five for being able to take food from a spoon. So that's the silly association that I have for 5 months. By the time the baby reaches 6 months, I like to think of feeding at 6 months as similar to when a child goes from elementary to 6th grade. So they're not independent yet, but a lot of 6th graders kind of go into middle school thinking, I'm going to be with the cool, older, big kids now, and I'm going to try to attempt to new things that I haven't. And this is kind of how a 6-month-old baby thinks. They try to hold a bottle. They probably don't have the strength or the coordination to be able to drink from a bottle or a cup, but this is when they show an interest in using a cup. They attempt to hold a bottle, and then when it falls, they don't even have the thought to be able to retrieve it, because this is barely when object permanence is emerging. But doesn't matter, they're going to try to hold a bottle. And at this time, they also try to take and hold and eat a cracker or a cookie if you give it to them. So this is when they start to explore and figure out and try to be independent and do things on their own. And if you look at the feeding development, it's all about a baby coming into being and trying to do things on their own. So as early as 6 months, you begin to see that, the need and desire to be independent. Another big milestone here to know is that there is a strong up and down tongue movement. And so remember that it began with training ground between 4 to 5 months with a up and down jaw movement. By the time they're at 6 months, you can see a strong up and down tongue movement. Okay. All right, let's move on to month 7. The big one at month 7 is that they get a diagonal jaw movement, which allows for mastication. So you're able to introduce at this point more food into their diet because they have a diagonal jaw movement. And for me to remember the diagonal jaw movement at month 7, I think of a slot machine, because what do we associate with when we think of a slot machine? We see the number 7 going across or going vertically. Well, diagonal jaw movement basically means you can go vertically, horizontally, both ways. But when you get 7s all the way on that slot machine, like going diagonally, vertically, horizontally, that's a jackpot, right? So at month 7, you hit a jackpot with diagonal jaw movement, which allows for mastication of soft food. All right, nothing really big happens in 8 months. I mean, it's a continuation of everything that's happening, but the next big milestone occurs at month 9. And to remember month 9, I like to think of blueberries, because month 9, the big milestone is finger feeding and lateral tongue movement. And so here I have for you, this is what I'm eating for breakfast. Well, not really. This is part of my breakfast before I head out, and I always have blueberries. It's one of my favorite foods. But how do we eat blueberries? I don't use a spoon or a fork. Typically, I'll use my fingers. And the other question is, how many letters are there in blueberry? Count it out. 9 letters, 9 months. So I have 9 blueberries here. Get that visual for blueberries, which has 9 letters. And I'm going to finger feed myself right now using a pincer grasp to illustrate what happens at 9 months. And you have lateral tongue movement at 9 months. So you eat blueberries with lateral tongue movement. So you can put it in the center of your mouth and move it to the left or right using lateral tongue movement. Oh my God, it's so sour. Maybe it's gone bad. I should have tried it before the video. Oh, so sour. Anyway, so blueberries. Blueberry, 9 letters. Finger feeding at 9 months with lateral tongue movement. So that's the big milestone to know. Okay. After 9 months, we jump to 1 year, 12 months, and the big milestone here is that they understand the function of a spoon. So up until this point, they were either being spoon-fed at month 5, or they were like using the spoon to bang against things. But finally, when they turn 1 year, they understand that the spoon has a function and that it is to eat with it. And so during this time, they will take the spoon and they'll dip that spoon in the food and check it out, and they'll bring it to their mouth. But unfortunately, this is a time at which the babies start to make a lot of mess because they don't have the sequence or the motor control to be able to bring it all the way to their mouth without actually inverting the spoon and spilling and making a mess everywhere. But the great thing is that they understand the function, the tool, and they're able to use it appropriately, regardless of whether they can control it or not. Another really big one to know for year one is that they have a firm jaw, so there is more stability and mobility and strength with the jaw, which allows for rotary chewing. So at right before rotary chewing, what do we talk about in terms of what's happening with the jaw? It was diagonal jaw movement at month 7, right? Diagonal jackpot, 7 months. After that, we get rotary chewing at 12 months, which is a lot more sophisticated. It allows them to eat a lot more food with rotary chewing. And also I mentioned that at month 6, the baby starts to show interest in cups. By the time they turn 1 year or 12 months, they're actually able to drink from a cup, although they'll need a lid to avoid spillage. So those are the big milestones that you will encounter when the baby turns 1 year. Rotary chewing, firm jaw, they're able to use a spoon for its appropriate use, although they make a lot of mess. 15 months, they're actually getting much better with using the spoon. So with better wrist as well as shoulder stability that comes around 15 months, they're able to actually scoop the food from a bowl, bring it all the way to their mouth and eat it without much spillage. So 15 to 18 months, you begin to see better spoon use. They're able to have better control, more precision in their movement. And by the time they turn 2 years, so this is 24 months, they're pretty proficient with spoon use. And so by this time, they're able to put like gravy on their spoon and balance things on their spoon. They also begin to show interest in using a fork. So they'll stab at the fork. Although they don't become proficient at fork use until about 2.5. At 2 years, they begin to show interest. And also another big one to know is that they can start to use a straw at year 2. And you would think they should be able to do that pretty early on. Why does it take up to 2 years? Well, it does take more motor control because you have to be able to seal your lips and use suction, right? So straws don't actually come until 24 months. All right, so we covered all of that. It wasn't too much, right? I covered feeding as well as chewing and biting. I actually incorporated those 2 milestones together because you gotta be able to bite and chew to be able to eat. So I thought it made sense to put them together. But I want to quickly revisit biting and chewing again and go over this developmental sequence for that separately because I think it's important to know the developmental sequence. And we talked about this for scissor skills, right? Before you try to just shove information and put numbers to it, try to first understand how the baby develops in sequence and know the order before you put numbers to them. So let's go back to biting and chewing. We talked about that phasic bite and release pattern that emerges as early as 4 months, right? Between 4 to 5 months. And when that becomes repetitive and rhythmic, we said that that's munching, that's vertical up and down movement of the jaw. And then from there, at 6 months, they will have up and down, strong up and down movement of the tongue. And from there, at 7 months, they will have diagonal movement of the jaw. And at 9 months, they will have lateral tongue movement. And at 12 months, they will have rotary chewing. Now, one of the ways that I like to organize this information, because that sounds like a lot and it sounds like a jumble, is to understand that up and down movement, whether you're talking about the tongue or the jaw, comes before side to side or lateral movement. So for example, up and down tongue movement develops before you're able to move the tongue laterally, and the jaw learns to move up and down in this munching motion first before it does the diagonal jaw movement and the rotary chewing. Okay, so that's one of the ways that I organize it. And the way that it goes is jaw, tongue, jaw, tongue. So then the jaw moves up and down at 4 months, and then the tongue goes up and down at 6 months, and then the jaw goes diagonally at 7 months, And then the tongue goes laterally at 9 months, and then you finish it with rotary chewing. Okay, so those are some of the ways that I like to organize the information to help make it stick. But again, feel free to get as creative as you like to come up with these associations so that you don't forget the milestones in the developmental sequence. Okay, so that's it for today. What time is it? Oh, I made really good time. I'm proud of myself. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. We'll continue along with pediatric milestones next week. Don't worry about it too much. I don't want you guys to stress over not being able to do it, because as we just covered right now, this too can be mastered and you can do it. It seems overwhelming, it seems like it's a lot, but if you start to take away pieces at a time, there's really nothing that you can't learn. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.